welcome back to the 13th Destiny podcast with Magnum. And of course, our new co-host, permanent co-host, Danielle Long, is on the phone waiting from San Diego, California. And we are moving forward here today. Things look good, and it's good to be back here on the 13th Destiny podcast. All right, we got some news in the paranormal world. We have some sad news about Bigfoot hunter Dallas Gilbert has died this week. He was 67 years old and was featured in the documentary Not Your Typical Bigfoot Hunter. From all indications, a really nice guy, but did a lot of things very different from the normal paranormal hunters of Bigfoot. But super nice, very cool guy. Sorry, it's sad on his passing. All right, and I have a news story here from also Kentucky, of all things, here from where the main base of the 13th Destiny podcast is at. And that's about the T.B. Ripley house. Oh, my goodness. This was something very interesting here in the backyard. Anyway, it's a haunted whiskey baron, and it's like a real-life Scooby-Doo mansion. This is over in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, and they literally say it's like walking into a real episode of Scooby-Doo. It was once owned by wild turkey tycoon Thomas B. Ripley. So super cool, and this is on the Weird News of Paranormal, so you can find that stuff there if you don't know where that's at. And then also the ongoing investigations of the Maryland UFOs continue to have massive UFO sightings over in Maryland. And California, where Danielle's come from, is one of the top 10 this year as well. So a lot of UFOs this year. Very, very interesting stuff. All right, so today, and we're going to be letting Danielle tell you a little story about Cades Cove coming up. We're going to be talking about the Cades Cove Paranormal Activity over in the Great Smoky Mountains. And now, welcome co-host Danielle Long back to the show.
Hi.
Hey.
Happy to be here.
Absolutely.
We're talking about the haunted Cades Cove.
Yes.
And this story, I'm going to give some background too, but this story is about the Unseen cover. And it's about, well, I think I'll just start from the beginning. Before it was popular tourist day attraction, the Great Smoky Mountains, Cades Cove, was a place that hundreds of people called their permanent home. For over 100 years before the park was designated, plenty of families worked and lived in the Cades Cove Valley. Before European settlers came to the valley, the area itself was heavily traveled by the Cherokee people and was worked as a place to hunt the abundance of deer, elk, bison, and bears. The first of the European settlers appeared in the cove in the very early 1820s. They quickly took advantage of the cove's overflowing resources and built a plethora of log homes, barns, smokehouses, corn cribs, and even cleared land for agriculture. The land was fertile and provided the settlers with everything they needed to flourish. Now haunted Cades Cove, within the 30 years of the 1820s, about around the 1850s, the valley had reached the population of 685 residents. Families were settling in, having children, and growing their homes. It was not uncommon for each family to raise 10 to 12 children each. As the population, okay, I'm sorry. I have to laugh. I can't talk so well because I have a piece of candy stuck on the top of my mouth. I need to get.
Hey, it's fine. It makes the show fun.
And I'm laughing because I'm going, okay, sorry, guys. I'm going to try this. Okay, within 30 years, by 1850, the valley had reached a population of 685 residents. Families were settling in, having children, and growing their homes. It was not uncommon for each family to raise 10 to 12 children each. As the population grew, many other buildings were erected in need of things like a schoolhouse and churches. Little did residents know that their small, happy town would turn into haunted Cades Cove. Once Tennessee and North Carolina began purchasing land for the creation of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Cades Cove fell in the area being bought up. Many residents left willingly, but some others refused to leave the place they had resided in their entire life. Some residents signed life leases, which allowed them to live out their lives in their land, with restrictions on hunting and logging. Obviously, some of the Cades Cove residents were extremely attached to the land and probably still are to this day. Now, this is about the cussing cover. One of the families that grew attached to the land of Cades Cove was the Estep's Mavis Estep, and her husband Basil lived in a quaint two-room cabin along Whistling Branch Stream. The Esteps enjoyed their quiet life in the cove, but a persistent but unrealistic fear truly plagued Mavis. She was absolutely paralyzed by the idea of being struck by lightning. The fear began when local legend told that she was fated to be killed by lightning bolt since she was born during a thunderstorm. Mavis did not dare go out in the rain and banished metal beds or furniture from her home. She even refused to quilt with her metal needles during storms, in case the lightning felt like creeping up on her inside her home. Mavis was an avid quilter, and this truly showed how irrational her fear was. Of her many beautiful quilts, Mavis' famous creation was a patchwork made up of pieces of one of Basil's famous, favorite red flannel shirts. She named her masterpiece the Cuffing Cover, because Basil had been wearing the red shirt during one of the couple's first marital arguments, in which Basil had split some very colorful language. Now it is a symbol of haunted Cades Cove living on in legend. In the end, it was not the lightning that took Mavis' life from her, but a severe illness. When she accepted that she did not have much time left, she gave Basil her blessing to remarry, but made him promise her two things. One, he could never sell any of her quilts, and two, he was never under any circumstances to place her quilts on a metal bed. Basil agreed to these requests, and Mavis passed away peacefully in her home shortly thereafter. Less than a year had passed before Basil was remarried to a woman named Truly Jane, who was a much younger woman living in Cades Cove. When she moved in, she told Basil the old wooden bed wasn't good enough, and after some prodding, Basil went against Mavis' deathbed wishes and bought a new metal bed for the couple. One evening, when the weather was strikingly cold, Truly Jane asked Basil if they could add one of Mavis's quilts to the bed to keep warm. Ignoring his promise to Mavis, he let Truly pick a quilt to sleep under, and as fate would have it, she picked the Cuffing Cover, as she was quite taken by the beautiful red flannel pattern. In the middle of the night, Truly Jane was awakened to an apparition of an angry woman standing at the foot of the couple's bed. The woman locked eyes with Truly and started to scream. Truly woke up Basil in a panic, but when he awoke, the woman had disappeared. Despite Truly's fears, Basil told her it was simply a night terror, and they both returned to sleep. A few hours passed when a brilliant flash of light burst into the Estep home and knocked Truly out of bed. When the smoke of the light cleared, she found her husband, Basil, lying on the floor, burnt to an absolute crisp, where the metal bed had stood. The rest of the cabin was untouched and undamaged by this strike. Oddly enough, there were no thunderstorms in the night in the cove, just a single bolt of lightning that happened to land right on Basil. Mavis's quilts were eventually sold to one of the Estep's daughters and ended up in the hands of a collector. Rumor has it that the quilts are still around the Smoky Mountains. And I got this story from GatlinburgHaunts.com. So if you want to read more about it, GatlinburgHaunts.com. And that's where I got the story of the custom cover.
Very interesting story indeed. And Cades Cove is just, and that's one of the most interesting, a couple other stories, but that was one of the most interesting stories out of Cades Cove and its paranormal activity, because it has to be paranormal activity in my opinion, of course, due to the fact that that is such a wild story that has been going on for so long. And for that person to not follow the wishes of someone and then get struck by the lightning and nothing else got hit, and you definitely gotta put two and two together and say, well, that's definitely some paranormal activity. Speaking of the Cove, also I've been there several times. It is a beautiful, beautiful area to visit as a tourist. I have been there a few times. I was there as a teenager with the Boy Scouts, and then later on in life I was there several times. I've visited Gatlinburg many times. It's not that far from where I live here in Kentucky. I'll be there about 4.5 hours. So I've been there many, many times. But the paranormal activity was something that I didn't know at first, and of course, over a period of time I started hearing more about it. There is also a story, and I have traveled that loop road. That loop road goes through there completely around through Cades Cove in that Tennessee, North Carolina area there, right there. And I have heard this story. I've never actually seen this, but there's also a story of a cabin that people have seen in the woods, and when they try to hike to it, it just disappears. That's a pretty wild thing too. So Cades Cove has a lot of paranormal activity. There's also another story, and I think I discussed this with Danielle, if I remember correctly, about the woman at the church's face coming out of the church walls. Also another very well-known story. And all of this can be found on the internet pretty easily if you type in like Smoky Mountains Paranormal Activity or Cades Cove Paranormal Activity. Both of them pretty much will give you the Cades Cove location. And of course, there's maps and things available at the park headquarters for hiking and everything else. So Danielle, what do you think about Cades Cove? Are you still with me, Danielle? Hello, Danielle. Are you still with me? Okay.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
I was like throwing it back to you, asking you what you thought about Cades Cove in general, and I was like, what did
I know there's a little technical error. It's all right. I thought it was a beautiful. I think it looks really a beautiful place. I have not been there, but there's a lots of different stories.
Mm-hmm.
Of the Smoky Mountains being haunted.
Absolutely.
You would think, do you think there's any connection to the Cherokee?
I absolutely think there's some connection to the Cherokee. That's very, very possible and feasible because they use that whole area. And of course, over in Cherokee, North Carolina, they're there now, and of course, it's mostly tourist destination. Of course, just like Gatlinburg is, and Pigeon Forge. But one of the things I can say is, there's so many weird things in that area with the paranormal that you've just got to take a step back and say, yeah, there could be a Native American influence there. As we well know, there's a lot of paranormal within the Native American culture, so that's very, very possible that they have something involved with that as well. I haven't researched that deep.
Yeah.
I haven't researched that.
Have you heard of the lot of voices thing? People hear a lot of voices.
Yeah, people do hear a lot of voices. Now, the only problem
I'm talking about Cades Cove.
Yeah, Cades Cove. The only problem at Cades Cove about hearing the voices, you really need to try to be there in the evening. Try to find a place that you can be there in the evening when it is not as busy. Because Cades Cove is a major, major area for the Great Smoky Mountains and that region. I don't know what the amount of people that travel Cades Cove are. I'm sure they've got stats on this. Because I do know that the Great Smoky Mountains is the #1 national park visited in the country due to the fact of all the population within the area from the northeast to the southeast and east of the Mississippi, or at least it was the last time I checked. And now there's some other national parks that are close, but I think it's because of population density, and it's so easy to get to compared to some of the other national parks. Is one of the I think I remember reading, maybe that was what it was, the reason I read that. To know that. I haven't read it recently, but I do remember it being said that was it. So Cades Cove, if you go there, you definitely need to go there like in an evening time if you don't want to do the paranormal stuff. Because during the day, I can absolutely tell you, and even into the early evening, I've hiked up to a waterfall for where you park in the area that has a really nice parking area in Cades Cove. And yeah, it's just super, super busy, especially at certain times.
I heard that you can go and get a map
yes.
of the place
yes,
there.
you can.
And then it takes, if you could spend all day, and it tells you which different marks along the way to go all the way around.
Yes.
And I hear that it's pretty popular tourist attraction.
It is.
Do you agree? Was there a lot of people there when you went?
Oh, I don't remember any time I went there that there haven't been. Now, one of the things I will tell you that some of the times that I traveled there were in the months of July and October. These are considered two peak months for Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, as far as people being there, people renting cabins in those areas. Literally, if you're going to go in July or October, and then sometimes December, because December has a lot of Christmas stuff in the Gatlinburg because they have a big. But if you're going to go in one of those 2 months, you better plan in advance because it's hard to get a cabin sometimes in those months because it is the peak season, and then there's a lot of camping, a lot of RV stuff. So it is a very popular area. I would recommend it.
I want to go.
Well, it's really nice. Yes, it is. And like I said, now when I was in the Boy Scouts, we pretty much camped in the camps and stuff. But that's a whole bunch of us together. In recent history, some of the business stuff I did up in Gatlinburg, we would rent cabins, and then of course I rent some cabins on personal reasons. Over the years, and you have just been there. I've actually, ironically, went to Gatlinburg a couple of times and just went by myself. Now, I didn't do the paranormal stuff by myself like I did, going out to the cemetery on the last episode that we talked about. But I don't know. I might try that sometime. But yeah, Danielle, it would be great for you to be able to visit and go out there. It's just absolutely beautiful, and yeah, that would be awesome. So yeah. Well, I think we've done really well today. What do you think, Danielle?
Yes, except the candy sticking in my mouth. It was great.
I actually think that was pretty fun on this show. I was like, usually, I was sitting there going to myself,
I couldn't talk. I was talking funny.
I think most of the people that follow this show right now will have fun out of that because they're like usually it's either me messing up and I hope that I've slowed my voice down a little bit today. I do have a bad tendency.
Yeah, it sounds better.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I have a bad tendency of doing this, and a lot of people who listen to my show know me pretty well. But we are trying to expand and get new people onto the show. I do have a bad tendency to when I get comfortable, and I'm usually comfortable with Danielle quite a bit, I will just talk and forget that I need to slow things down. Although I have done it on the show by myself. But I am working on that and trying to improve that to make this better. And Danielle did a great job today, except for, like she said, the candy, but it was kind of funny. And I hope y'all...
We're both learning and growing.
Yeah.
The show will get better and better and better, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And
I'm just starting out on your show, but isn't your show, like you said, it was the third year?
It's on my third season. It absolutely is. And ironically, I just had a friend who I used to work with who had sent me a message on Facebook, and he said, and it's weird because we're on Facebook together. I guess he just hadn't paid attention to the 13th Destiny podcast, but he was over on... apparently he's not on Facebook every day, but apparently he was over on Spotify, and he saw it, and he said, man, I just started downloading your show because I want to listen to it. He said, I didn't even realize you had the show. So we're even getting people that literally are connected to me that didn't even realize the show. And I think with Danielle on, we're going to get other people. We're going to have a much broader show. It's going to be as we get more and more involved with getting the tech improved. And I'll tell Danielle before we get off with Danielle, I actually got 6 boxes of stuff out of the studio today and actually got some more room in there. So hopefully I'll get all this fixed. And
that's good.
Yeah, we'll move towards having it all fixed up more for podcast stuff. And as I move away from the other stuff I've been doing for almost 20 years, which has pretty much come to an end, and outside of maybe some film stuff, but yeah, I hope that slowing this down just a little bit has made it a little easier to follow along, and I hope you still enjoy the show. And it's still me. You can tell it's still me, but yeah. And thank you for telling me it sounded a lot better. All right. Well, anyway.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
It's been nice to be on the show. We see you guys next week.
Absolutely. And I'm going to do a closeout here with the music and everything else I normally do, and then I will get this episode up as quickly as possible.
Yippee-i-yo!
There you go. All right. Thanks, everybody. God bless, and goodbye.
Everybody.